How you feeling? You alright?
I'm good.
That's good.
Playing hard, playing tough, just plain good. It's not good enough. We're gonna show you what league's all about. If there's a lesson to be learned, we're handing it out. This game is our game. This town is our town. Turn the heat up and listen to the crowd.
Good evening and welcome to the Joust. My name is Nagy. I'm here as always with my co-host Liam McNeil. Now, Liam, that song, just playing good is not good enough, and I think that resonates quite well with this round because we were just not good enough against the Cowboys on the weekend.
We weren't. Look, I loathe to talk about this game, Nagy. I was working on a bit of a think piece about the oft overstated importance of the purges on the Red Army in the lead up to World War II that I was going to do on the show, but then it came to me, we are a Newcastle Knights podcast. I suppose we should talk about the game that happened on Friday night. It was, Nagy, it's not going to be fun to talk about it, is it?
No, it took us back. It took us back to last year. It definitely felt like a last year performance. It's leading, looking like we're in control, looking like we're in it. But if anything, because it's this year, we had confidence, and that's the worst thing for a letdown is having the confidence there. Because when you got no confidence, you don't have far to fall. You're already on base level. But when you got confidence, you lift it up. You're sort of holding a balloon, if you will, and you're just taking up higher and higher and higher, only for the balloon to be bursted at the 78th minute, and you fall all the way to the ground, all the way that you lifted.
That's it. I hate having hope. Having hope is painful and terrifying.
Yeah.
And I yearn for the days of yore when we're going ahead at half time, and then you say, well, we're going to lose this one, so let's have a few beers. Unfortunately, I didn't have any beers because I was at work, and I ended up very angry the rest of the night. It was just a debacle, Nick.
It was an absolute debacle. It wasn't nice to see, in case anyone might have missed it. I mean, using this forum as a way to catch up on the game, which is a terrible use of your time.
We're sorry to do this to you.
But we were up 18-6 at half time, but it was the way we were playing. The score wasn't about the score. It was how easy it looked like we were scoring points.
That's it. The Cowboys just looked like they didn't show up for the first 40 minutes. They weren't there, and we didn't put that to the sword.
Yeah, and I think especially I thought we were going to go back in the second half, and at least we might not be able to score as easy, but we'll be able to score enough to not let them back in the game. And we didn't score again.
We didn't. And it was mentioned a few times during the coverage that we have the worst second half defense in the competition. Yeah. The Cowboys have the worst second half attack in the competition. And by God, wasn't it just terrible to watch?
It showed.
It really showed. It was from such a exciting and electric first half to sink to that second half. It was an insipid second half, Nagy. That's the word I'd use to describe it. It was insipid, riddled with errors, and just oh my God, it was just terrible.
And it wasn't like we went head to head and we were really like matching each other, and then it just looked like we were just laying down. What it looked like the team was gassed in the second half. It looked like we, and especially in that last sort of 20 minutes, we looked busted. There was players going down. We lost Danny Levi with a hamstring. There's no excuses being made. We should have had the game wrapped up by that point.
Exactly. That's wherein my biggest qualm lied, that we should have had the game wrapped up by then. They shouldn't have still been in the race. In the first half, they were the Cowboys were just terrible. They were absolutely terrible, and we should have had it wrapped up.
Yeah,
we should.
And they would have lost 5 games. I think it was their 5th game in a row. They would have lost. And yeah, we deserved to win that one. But look, enough of just dwelling, because we'll be doing enough of that moving forward. But Liam, we'll go. What went right? What went right for you for that game?
Well, the first 40 minutes, Nagy. The first 40 minutes was excellent. The attack was there. I think the Knights did really well to isolate some weak points, specifically the edge defences of Jake Clifford and Jonathan Thurston. We exploited. We knew where they were weak, and we hit them hard. And we just looked electric. Every time Kalen Ponga got the ball, he was either providing an offload for a line break, he was making a line break himself. Yeah. But so many times we didn't capitalise. I think my first sign of worry was when Ponga makes the line break. Yep. He sizes up the fullback, gets it to Mitch Barnett. Barnett just kind of fell. He looked like he was running in treacle.
He got shot,
and then he got chased down. And from there, I was like, oh, God, we don't have this. Yeah. We're winning, but we don't have this. We didn't we didn't have the game by the scruff of the neck. So, yeah, the first half, the attack was great. The defense as well in the first half. I know the Cowboys didn't throw much at us, but besides that one try with Danny Levi in the bin there, the defense was good. You know, we had Sione and Kalen Ponga bungling that same winger, whose name escapes me at the moment, over the line to save a try. You know, Cohen Hess was held up, splitting Mitch Pearce in half across his noggin. That was, you know, we showed a lot in defense that I kind of gained a bit of hope. Like, all right, we're defending all right. They're not throwing much, but we're defending okay.
Yeah. For what went wrong, Liam, there was a period in the second half there from about, I'd say the 45th minute to the 55th minute. We just didn't have the ball. The Cowboys had all the ball, and they weren't even doing that much. You know, we were defending basically in that middle third, and just fighting it out. But what we were doing is just defending. And it looked like we came out and all that energy and all that excitement and everything, when everything looked pretty crisp in that first 20 minutes, it just sort of fell away. And then suddenly we never bounced back. Everyone just, you know, whenever a player went down, everyone ever missed a tackle, whenever there was a stop of play and you'd expect the team to run back with energy, they just looked like they were running in sand. They looked like they were looking up at the clock. It just felt like they were never in that. They were hoping that what they'd done in the first half was enough to win the game, and they weren't willing to dig deep enough to do it again in the second.
And it really showed. That period you talked about, you're right, the Cows had all the running, we were defending, and then we got about 5 repeat sets. I think it was 4 or 5 repeat sets basically on the Cowboys line, and couldn't make anything out of it. It was a game that I think, to me, really highlighted the difference in the team not having Connor Watson.
Yeah. No,
because a defense like what the Cowboys threw up, Watson would have absolutely gone to town, I think, especially in the second half. He's a very lively player. I think he would have been the one to really put the stamp on that.
Interesting you mentioned that. And, you know, the combination with Pearce, as we said last week, you know, when they've both played the full game in the halves, we've won every one of those games. They were working halves combination. And look, Cogger put the tries over early, but we miss Watson's energy, and he always asks questions down the blind. He wants, you know, he makes the tired defenders think, and you know he asks those questions that it's hard to defend against when you're on the back foot. And I think we had no patience in that second half with their attack, and I think that came off the learning from the first half when we got lucky and were scoring early in the sets and from 20 out, and we thought, oh, this is easy. You know what I mean? We don't have to build pressure. We don't have to pin them down in their own line. We can run it on the fifth and sort of spread it wide and just hope. You know what I mean? You know when you just spread it wide and you just hope, and
that is exactly what Nathan Brown said in the press conference. He said the team came out in the second half and looked like they were just thinking, well, we'll just score points and win the game. We'll just score points and win the game. It's, I guess, the scourge of a younger team that you think that we'll just score points, but you need to apply the pressure to score the points. And although I don't think the Cowboys were that much better than us in the second half, it was telling that Jonathan Thurston was involved in all of their tries.
Everything.
He built pressure. The rest of the team weren't playing too well around him, but he built the pressure that allowed the Cowboys to finalise the game, to put their stamp on it. And we just didn't do that. We expected to score, you know, if not on every play, you know, we expected to score as often as we wanted to, and that's just not...
It's not mature. It's not mature footy.
It's not a way to win a game.
What you saw from Jonathan Thurston, who still looks like that shoulder is giving him grief, and we sent some traffic down his side in the first half. In the second half, we just sort of went away from that, and he came off a few of the tackles, and he was just holding that shoulder so painfully, and we just didn't do that enough. We didn't, we should have been throwing everything at him because he was the only thing they had coming back the other way. But he's the class player, even though he's not the player that he once was. How many times have we seen that in Queensland when all he needed to do was just keep applying pressure, and then they find that crack. And that's what they did with us. And you could almost, you see it with Thurston so often. And it was just a classic Thurston play. Go down the blind, hold, inside man. And then that led to the last try.
It was, it took a lot out of me watching that. I had a terrible night at work. Again, it's the hope. I don't want the hope. Don't give me hope.
Well, we'll stick with the H's theme. And who's your hats off for this week, Liam?
My hats off for this week. It's got to be the Pong. I think he was wonderful. We've got our stats here, again, courtesy of the Hebrew Hammer, our statistician genius.
Thanks, Spiegelman.
Thank you, Spiegelman. 180 metres Kalen Ponga ran for. He had 7 tackle busts and a line break. I thought he was the spark in attack in the first half that really got the side going. I feel like he tried a lot in the second half, but again, it was just the a lot of it was he seemed to have had the energy sucked out of him. The players around him had the energy sucked out of him, which we know is one of Ponga's strengths, is he gets the players outside of him, into the right spot. And it just felt like the players outside of him couldn't offer what he needed. So I thought he played really well, but again, it was just...
He did all he could. And we can't rely on Ponga to break the games open like that, when we're on the back foot and, expect that 12 men out there aren't going to lift, but he will. There was a few things that I think, just didn't work for us. And Ponga, you can imagine Ponga coming into this, he hasn't played football in 3 weeks. He's only been running around, in the last week. So he's had 2 weeks off. His match fitness probably just wasn't where it once was on the back end of those games. And, to come out to your old team to play against, arguably, the greatest player ever in Jonathan Thurston.
I'd argue that. I will.
Argued.
We
Yeah.
will argue that.
We will argue that because we all know the real answer. But it's, he would have had so much excitement to finally play these guys that, a team that pretty much let him go. And he would have, come out with 100, and then to think I'm on top and have them, just turn the tide. And I can just see, they broke us. They broke us emotionally.
They did break us emotionally.
And us emotionally as well.
Yes. To think that we haven't been broken before is quite something, but they finally did it.
But
the bastards finally did it. But I think one thing that did buoy my spirits, and again, the more you hear about Kalen Ponga, the more impressed you are. But I read an article through the week that in the process of recovering from the ankle he rolled at the captain's run.
Yes, that's true.
Thursday,
he was carrying that as well, yeah.
He spent the night at Tony Ayoub's house. He was like, look, I want to rehab this properly. I want to do it 100%.
Yeah.
So he spent the night at Tony Ayoub's house so that they could, probably have some wine, some cheese, and focus on an hour by hour recovery program to get that ankle right. So again, I'm just impressed with the kid. Every single thing I hear about him makes me swell with joy.
Yeah.
And, I really needed to read that.
He's an animate professional. For a person his age, he's really showing a lot. I always compare him to someone that was around his age at the time and looked like he was doing all that sort of things. If you remember when Josh Dugan came onto the scene, just he's like, hear me out, Liam.
He was a pisshead.
No, listen, this is when he came onto the scene when he was playing for Canberra, I think it was. And he was just, he was just everywhere. It was this rangy, fullback that no one could control. All the clubs wanted him to play. But then you see it around sort of that 21 age, and then you could just he became a real dick. But Ponga's the same, but it's he comes with all the talent and none of the cockiness.
Hats off, Nag.
Hats off has to go to Lockie Fitz, Liam. That first half from him, we were talking last week about how 15 tries in basically not even quite a season and a half, a season and a third is he's managed to keep that going, and what he showed there again, 2 tries in the first half. So he keeps proving so. Now 17 tries. He's leading.
He's leading the Knights try scoring. It's quite something. He's a hell of a talent.
He's a hell of a talent. He's just that big body. He does it again. He ran the overs line twice. Twice it paid off for him, just beating the first tackle. But the first one from a little bit further out, and to beat the line, and a lot of forwards just absolutely shit themselves when they beat the line. They don't know what an open space looks like.
Yeah.
And he was looking for passes, but then also to have the mindset to just go himself and step back in, and but look and step back in and do it all himself. He's a real talent.
He is, and it wasn't only his 2 tries. He had a great game. He had 6 tackle busts, 2 line breaks, and 43 tackles. Led the tackling for both sides. Jake Granville was second with 36. He's really showing that he's maturing into more than just a line runner, more than just a hole runner. He's becoming a very competent and very complete second row. I think he ran for just a touch under 100 metres, so still put in plenty of work. But, he got the player's player from the Knights, and, he was outstanding.
Hats back on, Liam. I know you want to say the
second half.
I know you want to say the entire second half, and you will.
I think it's got to be Josh King for me again.
Yeah.
He had 2 runs for 13 metres. He just doesn't seem to be offering much.
Yeah. And look, Jacob Lilliman as well only played for about 18 minutes, never got a second run. You could maybe argue there's something wrong with the interchange. Maybe they're not getting that right. Maybe they had to, when Danny Levi did his hamstring, maybe he was going to come on again. But it's why do we have this player that's only playing for 18 minutes starting him, but he's not doing great numbers either? It's really strange. If he was killing it, if it was like a Fuifui Moimoy back in 2006 when they would just put him on, he would have this incredible 15-minute spell, and then they'll take him off and he would have another spell. So he'd only play for 28 minutes, but then he would have 140 metres.
And that's it. That would be good quality work across the 28 minutes.
Yeah, but instead it seems like he's on. He just does less than what other front rowers are doing, and then he's taken off. Andrew Fafita, I think, played for 30 minutes on the weekend. Stuff like that. You can't. How do you compare all these props? And you can say that he's just getting old, but if he's just getting old, do we really need him? Is he doing enough as a big body? I think he only had less than 10 post-contract contact meters.
Which is not much
No, it's
for
not.
a man they call the Ox.
Yeah,
I thought Jack Cogger had his best game in first grade for the Knights.
I think he did too.
He showed what he can do once he's got a controlling half. You know, he let Pearce do the kicking. He filled in pretty admirably for Danny Levi while he was in the bin at dummy half. He had a few good little runs.
Yeah.
You know, set up Lockie Fitzgibbon's try. I thought Cogger showed to all the detractors how he fits into a team, where he can be and what he can do. And paired with Lachlan Lewis next year at the Bulldogs, they're actually going to be a pretty good halves combination, I think.
Hopefully, I want to see him do well. I want to see him do well because obviously we gave him a good run here, and I think it's a general consensus. No one thinks we should really keep Cogger for anything else, but just a bit of a reserve. If anything,
Bit of depth,
and that's and that's not really a place to keep a young half. You think let him go, let him try at another team because sometimes they really prosper. For me, hats back on, sort of shared. Look, I've been watching a lot of Jamie Buhrer, and I was trying to, since we were talking about do you re-sign him a few weeks ago, and I was thinking to myself, maybe I'm just being a little bit hard on Jamie Buhrer, but coming in as a co-captain, obviously he does a lot around the club as far as, coming from a team like Manly, a lot of great success in the time that he was there. He was then selected for Origin at that time, and that really sort of strange.
No one's really explained that one to me.
Yeah,
actually.
But so obviously he's come from that sort of caliber of player, but just he doesn't seem to have been bringing that. I don't know if it's not just like a workload in defence. He doesn't offer anything running the ball as a back rower, and. His front on defence. I'm thinking it's something. It call me crazy. Maybe I'm just because I'm watching him. He's like the naughty kid in class, and I'm the teacher, and I'm just like, why do you keep mucking up? But really, everyone's mucking up. But I've just got eyes for him. But it seems like he gets at least once every game. He gets stuck flat-footed, and then he doesn't seem too quick in changing direction. And he's if you compare him to someone like Chris Hingding, it's like. He looks like the younger man. But as we discovered, that Jamie Buhrer is only 28 or something.
Well,
so
he's got the hair of what Chris Hingding should have.
Should have, yeah.
But it's an interesting role, the Buhrer role, the small forward / reserve hooker. When you're going through the tough rebuilding phase, that's when you need players like that. But once you've got a bit more of a side built, the utility of that player doesn't seem to offer as much because there's less positions to cover. As you start recruiting, developing juniors, there's less positions to cover, so you don't quite need those utility players who can do 4 or 5 positions, but not excel in any one of them.
Well, that's it, yeah. He's just sort of like a player that you'd plug into a spot. I remember they always used to put Trent Waterhouse at centre. They did it a couple of times at Origin.
Did they really?
Well, they were like, if we lose it outside
Phil
back...
Bailey as well. Phil Bailey was one like that.
Yeah.
He could cover anywhere in the forward pack, and then they'd put him at centre.
Phil Bailey played 3 games in 2003 for Origin.
Wasn't that strange?
Crazy.
Yeah. To think we won Origin with Phil Bailey in
with Phil Bailey in
and
the
he got in
side.
the fight too.
Yeah, that's odd. But it's good old Phil. Wonder what he's up to. Hello, Phil, if you're watching.
I actually know Phil does listen to the show. He's an avid fan of the show.
Avid fan. Yeah. But it's just interesting to watch. It's just one of those players that you say, like, he plays a lot of positions, but he doesn't excel at any of them particularly. Maybe if he got the starting hooking role and it was his, he would sort of make it his own. Maybe because he just keeps putting on in different spots. He's filled in at centre a few times for us. He comes on I really find it like an ineffective back rower. I don't think, I feel like we could have someone with a little bit more size. I've been a little bit critical of our bench, but you can have a little bit more size and be a little bit more of a dominant runner as well.
Agreed. Brownie's been going off a very small bench this year, but yeah, I don't know. It's just it's such a strange role. He feels he works well as you rebuild. He offers stability, but then once you start developing the side, his role kind of diminishes.
It's just like if you compare him to Chris Hollington, who's another small forward on the bench, but gets through a much higher workload, seems to handle it better, and he's 7 years. Bureau's senior.
I think he's closer to 27
years. And I don't be too hard on Bureau, but also, like, Danny Levi had an absolute howler with not taking the 2 and the quick tap, and in the end, only in retrospect does that cost us the game.
Well, that's it. That's a very retrospective call. And I think at the time, the Knights were on the front foot. They had the running. That's what Danny Levi does, and he does it quite well.
Yeah. He goes with his instinct, but he's got some howlers in him.
But it's like Nathan Brown said a few weeks ago. He said, Danny Levi is still unlearning some things that he learned in the under-20s. If he comes through a proper reserve grade side, he gets these little errors and these little, selfish plays belted out of him. He basically said that. He said, you come from the 18s, you go play in reserve grade, you get these things belted out of you. Because Danny was playing in the under-20s and he was very much, I can do this by myself. I'll win a game by myself.
Yeah.
But now he's in first grade and that was never, I guess this, we're pro-violence on this show. What
Sure,
the hell?
let's go.
He never had that beaten out of him in reserve grade, which I think a lot of younger players need, because these younger players coming up, they don't understand the rigors of first grade. They don't understand that they can't just take a team on their back anymore. They can't be the bearer of the team. The first grade doesn't work like that. And therein lies the issue with the current setup of the NRL. Todd, we need reserve grade back. There needs to be a proper first grade reserve grade under 23s or whatever.
Well, Danny Levo played a lot of reserve grade this year as well, and it was
this year it's too late though.
Oh, well,
he needed that in his formative years. Well, actually, he's still in his formative years.
This is now the first year of a 3-year re-signing contract for Danny Levi. You know, he didn't play much first grade. He's got the opportunity. Look, he didn't have a terrible game.
He didn't. I thought he offered quite a bit of spark in attack. I thought his sin binning was a ludicrous call, but more to come on the refereeing in a wee moment. I didn't think he had a bad game.
Yeah, it was up and down, like a sort of a thing. It wasn't like we're only in retrospect, which is what we do. The whole thing is retrospect. But it's interesting to see. You have to blame someone, but then also you got the SKD howler. But Mitch Barnett drops the ball twice. But
again, SKD, he did a lot of hard work out of yardage, I thought.
Yeah.
He got the team on the front foot, but again, it's those SKD howlers, and I think Mitch Barnett, like you said, he had a night to forget with his handling. It was just...
There was a few problems.
But let's talk, Nagy, refereeing.
No, I think...
I am not one to blame referees for a game, and I shan't. The Knights should have won that game on the back of their own performances.
Yeah.
But... I will say this, the officiating that game was disgusting.
Yes.
It was so bad.
Well, actually, speaking of the officiating, there was on the final try, there was a bit of, was it or wasn't it not a forward pass, the last pass thrown to lead the try. Elliot, we got a clip. I think we got a clip there. So this is, we're defending a 2-point lead, and this pass here. Now, it got way more attention than I thought it deserved, because I didn't think that was forward. I thought it was a fairly
marginal ball, and the kind of pass you'd happily see go either way every other week of the year.
If that was the Knights coming through for us to win the game, and then people called it forward, we all know what we'd say. You're just being sore losers, and that's what I think a lot of people were. They were just hanging on to, like, please be forward. Please be forward. But once it's not called forward, and it's not like an obvious netball throw forward, there's no point of talking about it. It shouldn't even be, news like, oh, was it or wasn't it forward? It wasn't called forward on the night. It didn't look dramatically forward. It's only if you stop and pause and go, oh, look, this is where he threw it, this is where he caught it. But he's running it, 75% pelt, it's going to move forward.
That's it.
I hate defending a try that's that cost us the game. But it wasn't that cost us the game. It was firstly the last 5 minutes of play, but it was also that last, very Thurston-esque set play that it was just, he's been doing that for 15 years. You know what I mean? Like, at least we could have, and he drew the defender over. I think it was Barnett. I'm not sure.
Yep.
Came in just to shut him down, but that's what he wanted, and the hole was there. The hole was
like
created.
A fisherman putting bait into the water.
Yeah,
but again, like I think we would have suffered more if they call that and the try's disallowed or whatever, because then we're talking about a winning game. We gloss over the bad second half and we don't discuss the problems that occurred. So, I was fine with that being ruled a good pass and scoring a try, because if that doesn't happen, we go into next week and think, oh, we're brilliant, we're wonderful, everything's great. When in reality, we had one of the worst second halves of football I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So
I tell you what we did,
Liam,
and I tell you what we did. We absolutely capitulated.
Capitulated, Nagy. That's our word of the week. Well done.
Capitulated.
And
I tell you what, it was the word of the round, Liam.
Oh, wasn't it the word of the round?
If anything, like the one, because that happened Friday night, for the first game on Friday night, and we all carried that into the weekend. But what we saw from other teams was the exact same thing in different. Parramatta having a 14-point lead on Souths, only to get it run down in the second half.
Manly being up 24-6.
24-6.
Losing in the last 20 minutes. That was terrible.
Anything, look, obviously the football gods like to even everything out. And when they saw that the Knights fans had a terrible experience watching their team in the second half, they're like, well, if you thought that was bad, stay tuned. Because they're also the Rugby League Gods are also television producers.
Absolutely, and so they should be. We all love television. It's wonderful. Clearly, the people in charge are a higher power.
Yeah,
and we should praise them.
It was so, great to see Manly suffer that loss because to be 18 points ahead, 12 minutes on the clock, but they didn't need 12 minutes. They only took 7.
Now, the worst part about that, though, was I didn't even get to enjoy it because my boss at work, he's a diehard Manly fan, lovely bloke, Aaron Hogg. Hope you're listening, mate. And,
switch it off.
He said to me on Friday night, he said, "Look, Liam, you're the only Knights fan I'm going to ever console. So I'm sorry, mate. That loss must have been hard." And so on Saturday, I watched the last 20 minutes before work, and I went in and I just kind of had to grip my teeth, shake his hand, and say, "Hoggy, I'm sorry again. I'll never console a Manly fan, but you, Hoggy." So I didn't even get to enjoy it and rub it in his face.
It's like when you greet someone at a funeral. You don't actually say anything. You just sort of go.
There was a nod, a handshake, and just a. We're going through this together, mate.
We understand.
We understand.
Words don't need to be said.
No, we grieved together.
he just nodded and said, "Thanks for coming, Liam. Really appreciate it."
That's pretty much it.
The family appreciates it as well. Everyone was dressed in black. But it was a capitulation. We were one of 3 teams to capitulate. And it was... That made it slightly better. I tell you what, the Manly-Penrith game made it better because it wasn't... When it got to Monday, it wasn't like, oh, look at the Knights, throw that win away. It was like... Did anyone see that Manly-Penrith game? And so it just took the weight right off us.
And not only that, as soon as I watched that second half, I was like, oh, shit, here we go, sliding down the ladder. So at least that the other teams who are beating us in terms of coming last, they lost too. So
they lost as well.
So suck it, those team fans.
That's what we want. Time for the news, Liam.
Oh!
Not the biggest week of news, Liam. It was.
It's been a very quiet week in news. It's been again. We've said it a few times throughout the year. This may have been the most quiet year in terms of NRL players being dicks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for the game, but it's terrible for our podcast. It's not working out well. So the first piece of news I want to cover was an interview with Mitchell Pearce. Last week he was interviewed by the Newcastle Herald. Now we all know Mitchell's on a 4-year deal. And what he said in the interview is that he feels like he's still got 5 years of excellent football ahead of him.
Yeah.
And he would like to finish his career in Newcastle, which was just wonderful to hear. It was very good to hear and very promising.
Yeah, especially in this, I think everyone heard that was like, 5 years. Well, he's contracted for 4. He's at this age. He's probably only got that much time left in him. But if you think about now, if you look at the contracts debacles that have happened, Brisbane's talking about getting rid of Jack Bird, and then you've got Aaron Woods having, Bulldogs to go. They ends up at the Sharks on huge money. Contracts don't actually mean anything. They need 2 things. They need the club to still want them, and then they need the player to want to be there. And if those 2 don't match up, they end up leaving. So having Mitchell Pearce come out and say, I actually want to stay here. I'm really enjoying the first year. And it's, he's used to a team that, for the most part, was like pushing for a top 4. And so now that he's like, this is coming after a game that he knows he's not going to make the finals now. But he still wants to be part of that. I'm not going to call it a rebuild anymore. I think we've built something. I think he wants to live in the house that we've built.
He wants to enjoy the place. But that's funny you said that because it was Matty Johns came out after that interview and said, it must feel different for Mitchell. Coming from the Roosters, you get a win, it's a relief. You get a feeling of relief. It's like, oh, shit, everyone expected us to win and we won. Yeah. Whereas when you play at the Knights, you get a win and it's jubilation, it's excitement, it's good. It's not just, oh, great, we won. Now that week's done, let's move on. It's like, we won, let's get pissed and have a great time. Not too much, Mitchell, but it must be an immensely different feeling. And I think it bodes well for the long term. I like that he said that.
There's something about this year that the wins have meant something a little bit more. I know they've been close and we've got our issues, but when you're watching wins this year and there's more of that to come. We're only on the up. We haven't done this quick rebuild as we've said before. We've got the likes of Ramian, the Edric Lee and
Timothy Glasby
on the way with another big signing to come. Mitchell Pearce is happy. We've got the Pong for 4 years. You can see this is we're on the growth up when a lot of teams are on the slide down. And when you're out, let's say you're out somewhere like like maybe the Commonwealth Hotel, Liam.
Wonderful venue, the Commonwealth Hotel.
Isn't it just? And I'll tell you what, when you're like right in the heart of Newcastle there at the Commonwealth Hotel and and you're watching a game and the jubilation you get when you actually get that win, whether it be close, whether it be by 2 or by 30. Not that there's many by 30, but
No, when did that happen?
I don't know. But I'll tell you what, it's different to when it was 2 years ago. When it was 2 years ago when we couldn't buy a win and we'd even get one, it was sort of like, oh yeah, but it was like, well, next week's going to suck because we got any other NRL team that's going to come and flog us. So it's like, at least now we've had our disappointments, we've had some positive wins, and there's still 5 games left of the season. 5 games left of the season that I think we can squeeze out some more. And I think it's going to start with the Tigers next week.
It's just occurred to me, Nagy. We're at the stage of the rebuild. We've built the house.
Yeah.
Now we're furnishing the house.
That's sort of what I said before.
Well, you said it, but I thought I'd say it again.
I think sometimes when I start talking, you stop listening, and then the only person that's listening is whoever's listening to this.
Yes,
but I do the same with you. We're not actually talking. We're just taking turns to talk.
That's pretty much it. But the next item in the news. Now, Nagy, this is not a specific item so much as what I've seen across the whole rugby league news, and I would love to discuss with you. Nagy, have you heard the latest news out of the rugby league media? The NRL is dying.
Yes.
Have you heard this, Nagy? I've heard it every goddamn day this season, and it's really getting old.
Well, I was even listening to Talking Sport on the way here, and then they were saying how even the junior rugby league, like there's problems down there that they're just not addressing, and the game's just moving forwards, but not addressing the problems at grassroots. And this isn't even stuff around the elephant in the room being that basically there's lots of kids playing now that are much too big for the ages that they are. Call it the child obesity crisis. Call it the influx of Polynesians who just seem to grow a lot quicker at a younger age, and it's. But you watch it, there's all this stuff on Facebook now. You see, like, look at this, under 8s, and the kid looks about 14 years old, and he weighs about 90 kilo, and he just, like, runs through them. And every time you see a game like that, you know that there's players on that opposite side whose parents just go, nope, I don't want my son playing that anymore, because he's going to get seriously hurt. We're not far away from something that's going to get... You're going to hear about a young player that's going to, break a neck or break a disc or something like that, and then as soon as that hits the news, you have parents all over the country pulling their players out of the game, by pulling their 8 and 9-year-olds out and saying, you're not playing that, you're playing soccer. It's a much safer thing. There's an elephant in the room around size that they're not addressing, and it's going to really hurt our game. But
I believe they are addressing it. There has been moves to move towards a weight-based system for juniors as opposed to an age-based system, which...
That would work. It would work brilliantly. It would work fine, but then it's just... You never see it. That was around when I was playing under 14s. That was talk, so it was like...
That's it. They've been talking about that forever. But my big thing about this all, Nagy, is that we've heard this every year since, I think it was 1894, when a group of men sat in a room and said, we're forming the Northern Rugby Football Union. We're splintering away from rugby union. Every single year since that fateful meeting, we have heard that rugby league is dying, rugby league's in crisis. In my short lifetime, I remember 1995, the Super League war rolled around, started tearing the game apart. Rugby league's dying. Rugby league won't survive this. I remember the late 90s and early 2000s when the Wallabies opened up their war chest and started buying huge name, high-profile players. Rugby league's dying. We're at the end of rugby league. I remember in the kind of mid-2000s when social media started becoming big and players were acting like dicks and getting caught. Rugby league's dying. It's all going to die. It's this same narrative that is brought up by these media, we'll call them what they are, fossils, who have always had control of the media.
Buzz,
for a sport.
Can you do Buzz Rothfield impersonation, please? It just involves...
NRL is... dying. Sorry, I'd need a glass of wine to be doing a Buzz Rothfield. But it's just this same narrative that the rugby league media has been using since the game began, and it's shitting me to tears. It's really annoying. If you look at participation numbers, I believe are up.
Yeah.
Television numbers are up. Crowd numbers are up.
They up?
They are up. They're up on last year. They're up on the year before. They're actually experiencing growth at a higher rate than the AFL.
Yep.
And yet we are constantly told that the game's dying. They're saying there's refereeing crisis. The game's dying. There's players leaving. The game's dying. It's the same thing they've been telling us every single year.
Well, it's interesting that this is happening in the same week that, as we said, there is not much happening in the news. Now, like when a good friend of mine was chatting to, I think it was Billy Barton, hello.
Hello, Billy.
When he was chatting to Craig Bellamy at an event, and he was like, what's it like? Yeah, I know, hoity-toity Billy Barton. He was saying, what's it like coaching a rugby league side in Melbourne? And he said, look, mate, basically the AFL is so in engulfed in Melbourne that AFL controls the media. You've got people in the back rooms actually, like, pulling the strings, hiding stories, protecting players, big names, and they manage to, not always be stories that break, but it's more of a controlled system. In the NRL, it's the complete opposite. The media has such a big stake, and in fact, News Corp owns a certain amount of teams. I think Brisbane's one of them. That they're using just the sport to generate news. So it's you get things like this as saying the game's dying, because that's just something that just divides people and creates opinion.
But not only that, it's now leached its way into the coaches. It was Ricky Stewart said the other day, we're not going to have a rugby league in 15 years.
Yeah, well,
that's ridiculous.
He probably won't have a job in 15 years.
He shouldn't have a job right now.
Yeah.
But it's just, to me, it's so baffling that rugby league as a sport is so filled with people who are so negative. Like, if rugby league can survive the media scares that they have every single year for the last 108 years, then we can survive this. And yet you still get the media trying to tear it down. You get coaches saying that the game's not going to exist. You get, the media saying all these fans are turning off. I haven't heard from one person who said, boy, I hate rugby league. I'm leaving because of this thing that happened. That just doesn't seem to have happened to me. And yet they're trying to raise this scare. It's so endemic of the way rugby league people see rugby league. The people at the top. Yeah. Rugby league people see rugby league as, if something goes the way they don't like, it's dead, it's done, it's over.
That's the people at the top. But let's hear from the people on the ground. Let's open your sack, Liam.
These are the people who should be running rugby league.
Absolutely.
These are the people we need to be hearing from. Thank you, Sackers. Excellent sack this week, Nagy. It's very big, very
huge.
full.
Swallowed.
Now, first question for the sack. Matty Stork asks, this is a good one. I like this. Would you be okay with the heritage jersey being our main jersey? Is it time for a change, or do we keep our current strip?
Well, I think when we had Isaac Butterfield here, we were talking about jerseys, and there's seven. There's seven that now, and as we were talking about how the game's going to be gentrified.
Gentrified.
That's next week's word of the week. I'll previewed it, but
Nice,
it's going to be, and it seems to be like very sort of like everyone wants a piece. Everything you got to have something real capitalistic. Oh, let's offer 7 jerseys. That way we can sell 7 different jerseys to people. I think there's too many jerseys. I've always said this. I like one home, one away, maybe one special one. Maybe, I don't know. Call me crazy.
But again, in classic rugby league fashion, this is something that the English soccer put paid to in the 90s. Manchester United had a season where they had about 15 jerseys.
Yeah.
And you know what the English Premier League said? They said, no, you can't do that.
Enough.
Forget about it. And it didn't happen. And so we're at a point now in rugby league where there's starting to be more jerseys, which I'm going to disagree with you. I love that there's different jerseys, and I'm a bit of a rugby league jersey nerd. I adore them. I think if my team, the Newcastle Knights, could wear maybe 9 or 10 different jerseys throughout a season, I would be ecstatic. Because I'm too broke to buy one jersey. Yeah. So I'm not going to buy 8 or 9, but I get to look at them and enjoy them and learn what they're about. And I love that. But I realize the practicality standpoint, it's ludicrous to expect. But I think the more jerseys we can use, the better. I do love the heritage jersey. I think it's wonderful. I'd love to see that as the main jersey.
Yeah.
But the blue and red bars, I love that too. I think it's beautiful. Why can't we have both?
As long as it's not the away jersey from about 2005, which was just all red with like a little bit of blue.
That was disgusting.
I hated that.
That was so bad. And then pair that with the red shorts and the red socks.
Yeah, awful.
It's just a team entirely in red.
It needs to be red and blue.
Yeah.
I honestly think we have the best jersey in the comp, and just objectively, but I think my favourite colour is blue, hiddenly so.
Absolutely. Now, actually, I'm going to look through.
There's more on jerseys.
There was another question about the jersey. I can't remember who it was. Chime in if you remember who you are on this question, because I forgot to write it down.
That's all right. We'll do it for next week.
Do we get rid of the away jersey?
Well, that white away jersey we never win in.
We never win in it, but I like it. I think it's a strikingly beautiful jersey.
I don't know.
You don't like it?
Well, I've never really liked our... maybe it's because we don't usually win away games, like historically. I think we've probably won about 7.
So as a talisman, Nagy, you'd say no?
Yeah.
But aesthetically, what do you think?
Aesthetically, it's all right.
It's gorgeous.
It's all right.
It's all right.
I'll give
Okay.
it
It's all right.
Who
I
else
think
we
it's
got,
gorgeous.
Who else have we got?
We've got Brett Cruikshank. Now, Brett asks, who is to blame for our bad second half starts and seeming lack of adjustments? Is it the coach? Is it the players? Or is it both?
Well, it has to be both. There's something's wrong. Something's wrong that I was going to bring up in the news, that it's what the most concerning thing about the rebuild. It's not just the second half. It's just the defense in this. First, second, third year of the rebuild. Defense has always been the problem. The only difference now is we're scoring a few more points, and I don't think our average points has gone up dramatically. Probably because Mitchell Pearce didn't play for the middle third, but that's what's losing us the game. We're leaking points every game. So when we had that great game against Parramatta where we kept them to 6 and everyone was like, oh, well, it's Parramatta and they're having a terrible season. It's like, no, but we nearly kept them to nil the entire game. And I can't remember last time that happened. I think we thought about it. I think we asked this question.
Yeah, I think we
before.
did. We couldn't. But actually, that's something I forgot to put in the news. Mick Potter, who was serving as our defensive coach, I think has been let go.
Oh, really?
Which I guess if he's defensive coach, he hasn't been doing a great job because we've got the worst defence in the NRL.
Yeah, something's got to happen.
However, I think they could have maybe have kept Mick Potter. He was Dally and winning fullback. Could have worked really well with Kalen Ponga. But I think as a defensive coach, yeah, we might need someone else. But I agree.
I tell you who would be a great defence coach, Danny Badiris. Get him back to the club.
Wouldn't he be wonderful? But I agree. It's both. It's the responsibility of the players and the coach to cobble together some form of rugby league game that wins. And at the moment, the coaches and players didn't cobble together a rugby league performance that won. So I think the fault lies at both.
Yeah.
But I don't know to which extent, at which end. Now, Daniel Turner asks next, what did we think of the Levi binning, considering at the time both teams had conceded the same amount of penalties? That was the Knights' 4th penalty after the Cowboys had conceded 4. And the Cows player had seemingly lost it cold.
What's happened is we're seeing a big spike in the sin binnings, but you see a big spike in the sin binnings. I don't know. It never seems to be sin binning when the game's in the balance. It's only when early in the game. The refs, have the biggest balls in the world when it's the first 20 minutes. And it seems to be we'll sin bin them early. Hopefully everything, then they listen to us and get the style of the pace. And we spoke about this with Crow at the beginning of the season. Bring back the bin. And they have. But they don't do it when it counts because you see the same... You see inconsistency. You see when it's when there's 1 or 2 points in the game, all they get is warnings. Warning, next will go, and then if the same indiscretions happen, they just don't blow the penalty because they're too scared.
And that's it. The manner in which they've brought the bin back has been horrible. But again, it's a symptom of the rugby league referees don't know what the hell they're doing because they're getting so many influences coming from so many places telling them to do so many different things that it's just untenable for them to expect consistency, or it's untenable for us to expect consistency out of them. I thought the call was bad. Let's put it bluntly, the call was bad. It was a shit call. The Cowboys player lost it cold, but it was on the back of 3 penalties. There was confusion when Mitchell Pearce asked Henry Perenara. He said, but, mate, they were yardage penalties. They were, repeat infringements on the line. Henry Perenara did say, that's the last one, next person's going.
Yeah.
But when does that reset? We've moved on a few sets. We've moved up the field. There's no clarity there about when or where that warning is finished. It was, growing up playing rugby union, it was always quite clear. Penalty, 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 next one's going. And then they're like, well, that area has been cleaned up.
Yeah,
we move on.
Yeah.
We don't then call back and say, oh, hang on, you gave away a few penalties down there a while back, and then it happened again, and in fact didn't happen, and they say, now you're getting binned for it. It was a bizarre call and just woeful.
I'd be fine with it if they used it consistently, but it doesn't seem to use it
in the right
consistently.
manner. Look, we did discuss bringing back the bin, thinking it would be a great thing, but again, if you bring it back and use it terribly or inconsistently, what the hell is the point of bringing it back? It's a strange one. I don't like it.
What did Hickling ask this week?
Anthony Hickling this week.
Happy birthday, Anthony Hickling, for today.
Happy birthday. We'll travel through time and wish you a happy birthday 2 days after.
Yeah.
But strap yourself in, Nagy. This is a big one. And this is actually harking back to the last one. How do teams avoid giving away so many penalties? He watched the game live and a lot of them didn't seem like penalties. I get they're trying to speed the game up, but it seems like teams have to accept the penalty count knowing the other team will be punished just as much.
Yeah, sorry, there was a lot of penalties in there. What do you think, Liam? I'm going to throw it to you.
I'm not quite sure what the last half of that means, but Hickling, it's very easy. How do teams avoid giving away so many penalties? Don't break the rules.
Yeah.
We commit to not breaking the rules. We say we're not going to slow the ball down. We're not going to go offside. then you don't get penalised. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, look, I don't know. The whole penalty thing, it seems like it's pretty objective. It should be pretty objective in NRL. But in rugby union, it's subjective and it's completely up to the referee, but you never really hear about the rugby union. You might hear like, oh, he had a bad game there and he really let the game go there. But it's like the referees cop heaps about, this should have been a penalty, this shouldn't have been a penalty. I don't know, just move on.
But there's the problem as well, Nagy. We say that a penalty in rugby league is objective. It used to be. Then all the, the powers that be said, oh, it can't be objective. Objectivity in penalties is ruining the game. We need to introduce grey areas. They introduced grey areas and subjectivity to refereeing. You know what those same people said? Oh, you can't have grey areas. You can't have subjectivity. They want to go back to objectivity. And it's just, again, that the rugby league public kind of, or at least are told that they want what they don't have every time it's changed.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it really annoys me now. It's like it seems to be the way that teams get ascendancy again is just by getting 2 or 3 penalties, and it's like are they penalising the team that just slowing down in the ruck or trying to out wrestle them and going outside of the rules, or are they just getting on a bit of a roll because one penalty into the second, into a third, and all they're doing is watching that team more stringently than they are the others? I don't know.
And it's something interesting that was brought up today on the internet that I read, and I don't know if I agree with it or not, but you'll notice at the start of the season when we had our crackdown that was so poorly executed and then thrown into the bin, the teams that were unsuccessful under the crackdown were the teams who have been known for flouting the rules. You've got your Sharks, you've got your Storm. I don't know, what other teams are dickheads?
Roosters.
Yeah, your Roosters. And now that the crackdown's gone, we're going
Brisbane
back
Broncos.
to the Brisbane Broncos.
Oh,
these teams have started coming into their own and started playing good footy. Whether there's a correlation there or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
there's a prime example of how, like, that Brisbane Penrith game last week, you could have seen lots of Brisbane players get binned if they'll keep using that, like Danny Levi, I think, and they had 4 on their own line, and it was like slowing down the ruck, and there one more and you'll go. So why is it 4 that time, but it's 3 for, you know what I mean? Like it's just no, it's
ludicrous. Thank you, Anthony Hickling. Excellent question. Joel Southgate asks, should we give Basami Solo from the ISP team a crack in first grade?
Sure. It's like, Josh King hasn't stood up in the last 6 weeks. I'm assuming Basami Solo plays
front row. He plays in the front row. He's enormous, apparently.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with him. I haven't, but I'm sorry. That was probably a little bit of presumptuous of me. Because he just sounds like a front rower.
Well, he is a front rower, you'll be glad to know. I believe he can also play in the second row. He's played Australian schoolboys. I think he's still eligible for 20s.
Give him a run. Now's the time you'd promote those players up and say, look, Josh King, I'm really sorry, but go back to reserve grade and maybe have another crack next year because you've had a good section and you haven't, why isn't Yates playing? Is Yates injured?
See, that I don't understand. Yates is, as far as I know, is not injured. He has been playing reserve grade and playing reserve grade quite well.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. Haven't watched it. Haven't looked at his stats. But I assume he played well because he's wonderful. And the other one, now we've got depth front rowers like Basami Solo, like JJ Felice. This is the time of the year to give him a run.
Bring him in now. Yeah. Yeah,
bring
absolutely.
him in. Excellent. Justin Guion, last question for the night. Now this is a tough one to answer. How do we turn the team into a team that consistently plays for the entire 80 minutes that constitutes a game of rugby league football?
Well, it comes into defence. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like we can't defend for 80 minutes. That's what I see as the problem. And it seems like we're competitive. Last year we were competitive for probably 30 minutes, and now it seems like we're competitive for 40, stretched out over somewhere in the game.
Which is still an improvement, I think it's safe to say. It's better.
We're clearly getting better.
We're getting better.
But it's at the same time, like, we're not doing enough. It's still not where we'd like to be, and it's... As I said about 12 weeks ago, I just want us to beat the teams that we should have beaten. And like on Friday there, we should have beaten the Cowboys. That should have just been a win for us. Most teams would have had that.
That's a game against the Bulldogs a few weeks ago. Titans a few months ago. The games we should have won, we didn't. Yeah, but I think a big thing as well is to get consistency among the team. With the injury problems we've had this year, the halves have been chopping and changing.
They have.
We've had a few, a different fullback or two, different centres and wing combinations every week.
That's footy though. You know what I mean?
Like, that's footy.
We can, when we've had like our best team on the field, we've looked good. At the start of the season, we looked good. But we're going to have injuries. At the beginning of the season, it never feels like you're going to have any injuries, but you're going to have injuries. And so you're going to need not only depth, but you're going to need different players to be able to stand up and take that. I think that's what we're missing. We're missing the next lot of players to be like, well, I know Pearce is gone, and it would have been great if it was Brock Lamb this year to go, look, Pearce is gone, I'm going to own this team. And that would have been a real big improvement because it would have been like, well, when the top tier players aren't there, when like it was like when we watched Joey Johns back in the day for and Joey's not playing. Ah, well, we've lost that one. And
that was a weird period. And again, it feels like we're like that again. If Joey's out, well, substitute in Mitchell Pearce. If Mitchell Pearce is out, we lose. Pong is out, we lose.
Yeah, well, it's like we can't just keep relying on the top echelon of players to keep winning us games, because they're not always going to be there, and there's going to be some structural problems around there. We're going to have to rejig, and then we're going to have to win. And I don't think I'm yet to see one where there's been either a late change and other players have really stood up and said, no, I'm going to own this game today. That's what I feel like we're missing.
I think it's just time and practice and consistency.
We're getting better, and it's easy to the season. How haven't gotten better over this season. No, but if you look back over longer periods, again, we're on the up.
We're on the up, which is a good way to be. It's better than being just down.
Lots of teams went down this year. Look, if you're a Cowboys supporter, and I know that you would have enjoyed that win, but it's like, you played grand final last year, your squad hasn't changed, and now you're about to lose Thurston. Matt Scott's another year older, and you're at the bottom of the ladder. That's a real problem. Canberra Raiders is now at the end of their sort of run, if you know what I mean.
Well, that was a 1 year run.
No. Well,
they had a good 2016. Everything else has been terrible.
Well, 2016, and then it's and then it came down, and they're on the out. And Eels, another prime example, top 4 last year. They're the players on the side. They have to work all that goodwill back. But we, are somewhere in that bottom third. But we're on the up.
On the up.
We'll be threatening that. The top 8 next year, I think, Liam. It's been exhausting talking about
that. That was
game.
hard to talk about, wasn't it, Nagy?
Thank you all.
But we got through it together.
Thank you all for joining us, Joust. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you like our stuff, please like us on Facebook. See us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and I've forgotten one. Have I?
The Commie.
We'll
see you at the Commie.
And we'll see you at the Commie as well. Please get down. Make sure you get down for the second last night's home game there against the Tigers. It's going to be a rip roar. Hopefully we can get another home crowd win, and also hopefully we're going to get old boys as well last round against the Dragons. And it seems like the Dragons have classic Dragons form, have gone to shit in the last few months.
Just waited a few months.
In the last few months of the competition. We'll see you next week, Justice. Thank you for joining us again.
Man, that was like
it's got a death
in the family. That was tough.
It's got a nice start, this song. Ding.
Alright, now we never have to talk about that.
Well, there'll definitely be another time we talk.